Well, you know by now that we did not quite get to finishing off the Chevelle and getting the engine running before I had to call it quits on the last video. And in fact, I'm late today. Today is Saturday, the next weekend, time for me to work on this car. And it's like 3 in the afternoon. So I am horrifically late in getting down here and working on this because I was editing the video of me putting the engine in this car. Something like 6 hours worth of footage that I had to edit, which is just, you know, my problem. But anyway, that video is out as we speak. That should be releasing for you guys to be able to watch. And hopefully you're enjoying it because I spent a lot of time on it. But we didn't get finished. We still got stuff to do on this thing and we're a little bit late on getting to work on that. But I have one big job of those that is making me nervous. All the rest of the stuff I feel pretty good about, but I got one thing making me nervous. Let me show you what it is. This is our blueprint engine. It's all in the car. We're all wired up for the most part. We're ready to go, except you may notice a conspicuous absence of spark plugs, and that's because of these headers. So these headers, there's a pretty tight space in here for them to work in because of all the suspension that's here. So these are pretty tight bends on these headers. They're short pipe headers. They're actually long tube headers, but these pipes up here are pretty short and they're very tight bends. It actually makes it difficult to get these bolts in place, and it makes it difficult to clear the spark plugs. Now, in the last vehicle, in the 350, with iron heads that these were in, I had just enough clearance because the previous owner had beaten these headers in the submission to get them where he needed them. But there's a difference in iron heads and aluminum heads in how the spark plugs enter into the head. They come out at different angles. And so, obviously, what works on the iron head 350 isn't quite going to work here. So unfortunately, right here, this spark plug, once it's installed, almost hits this header. It's definitely not enough space for me to be able to get a plug wire on it, especially the kind of plug wire that I'm going to have to put on it, which is like the old Excel ceramic plug wires that I had on it last time. So I need to beat this header tube into submission. I tried doing that cold, as you can see here from the scratches. It's not giving up the ghost. So we're going to have to heat it up. I'm desperately hoping that I'm going to be able to just heat the snot out of this thing and bang a socket into it to get the right spacing, the right dent and curve. If that doesn't work, then it'll be heat and banging at it with something with a smaller surface area to impart more force. But that basically has to be done here and over here. So that was the number 4 cylinder. This is the number 3 cylinder. We've got the same thing going on, but I don't know if you guys can see this on video. There is already a dent in this header. It's unfortunately not quite big enough. So we're going to have to extend that one, but we have something to start with there, which is going to be helpful. So I don't know, we might try that side first. So there you have it. Now the rest of the stuff that I have to do on the engine is finishing off some of the wiring, bolting some last pieces up. I'll be honest with you, there's time involved with those, but they really don't concern me in the sense that they're not going to be desperate. They should not pose gigantic problems. I mean, you can always get broken bolts, but we shouldn't have fitment issues. Everything should go together and we should be okay. It's just plugging everything in. It's this header issue that is making me dread, because if this doesn't work with it in the motor and me heating these up and pounding these out, it's just going to mean a ton of work. So let's get to that now, and hopefully I'm going to be able to bring you guys in close enough to see what's going on. See if I can check by threading this in. When I say if, I mean, can I stand the heat? All right, so that's officially started correctly. Let's see if I can get the socket on. I can. I think I would still like to work a little bit of this out though. There's just a little bit here that I think needs to get flattened. So that little propane torch is not awesome. It does not get this as hot as I wanted. We were not able to get to cherry red, which is, you know, ultimately what you want to get to is sort of work this metal. But I got it hot enough that it was able to succumb to my hammer blows. And I basically just used the end of an impact extension and sledge and pounded it out. So I got good clearance now, and I proved it out by putting that spark plug in place, snapping my spark plug boot on there. It's still going to be very, very tight, so I am still going to use these Excel plug wires just to give myself the extra insurance that I don't burn through them being that close to the exhaust, but that is going to work. So happy with this side. This was arguably the easier side because the dent was started, but now I'm going to move on to the other side, see how this goes. So it'll be more the same here, except I'm not going to be able to do my clever socket trick. I had thought that laying a socket across here would allow me to sort of dent this all nice and neat at once. Not going to happen. That's because I'm not able to impart enough force on that socket where this thing is. I just can't get enough of a hammer swing in there to do that. So instead, I've got to try to multiply my force getting in here. So I'm going to use a smaller footprint. I'll use the end of that extension like I did on the other one. And I'm just going to have to sort of bang, 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 bang along a dotted line here, or an imaginary line here, to create that trough. And then maybe I can do the socket later if that even matters, but all I really care about is getting that clearance. So I already have my wires in for the starter, and I don't want to melt them. So we're gonna make some foil barriers in here to try to, you know, protect the innocent, if you will. Ouch. Well, I gotta be honest, that turned out to be much ado about nothing because it only took a few minutes and we're in and on. So that's working for me. So we will have to touch all that up. We've got a lot of paint now missing off the headers, but we had that from just installation. So we'll do a quick touch up on those before we wrap everything up, but the headers are fit. One of the flies in the ointment that we had last weekend when working on this was the power steering pump. So I got a new bracket, which I think is gonna work. But first we gotta take the old one off, which went into where the motor mount is on the driver's side. So a little bit more involved than you'd like it to be, but certainly not the end of the world. This is one of those problems that I didn't anticipate facing. The difference dimensionally in the block that actually throws this off. It's kind of kooky, but I guess it can happen. It's nobody's fault.
And I could have done a little bit more research. I just wasn't expecting that anything that mounted to a small block would be different. Usually, most parts that you have, you know, small block for a small block, they're go-tos. So I wasn't reading too much into it. I was worried about other stuff. Let's see what we can do about taking all this bracketry off, because I think it all has to go. All right, so the new power steering pump bracket works, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too crazy about it. It's pretty simple, goes together easy. I do have some clearance issues, but I'm gonna play around with them another time. For now, I'm gonna call this set done, and we'll move on. But I'll show you what I'm worried about here is the clearance, or maybe I can't even show you because the clearance is so small. That clearance, let's see, right here, from the pulley to the pump is very small. And I'm worried about that. So I want to get that up a little bit more, but I think in order to do that, I'm going to have to grind on this bracket a little bit. Fortunately, it would be grinding on the bracket that's the easiest to remove. So not going to do that right now, but I think that's an order of business that we'll take care of. And that should fix that clearancing problem. I just need to be able to goose that pump up just the slightest bit. And right now, this arm is interfering with the post coming out of the housing for the pulley. So it knocks into it. So I need to get that up a little bit in the air more. So, c'est la vie. We will work on that later. But for now, we now have our pump in and our alternator in. Now we just got to work on some of that wiring. You know, of all the stuff that's got me concerned about this build, and there's plenty, the wiring is the thing that has me the most scared stiff. And it's because there's so many variables to the wiring. This is not, for me anyway, super straightforward. I am not playing with a formula that is completely documented. I'm pulling together pieces of things that I found across the internet and across manuals, and I'm piecing it together to the best of my ability to figure out how I should be wiring this. So there's a bunch of ways that this could go wrong, and bad wiring can make fires, and it can screw things up sort of irreparably. So it's got me concerned, but I'm going to do my best to get this done accurately. So what I'm working on now is making sure that I get my fusible links in place. And not being an expert, let me tell you what I know about fusible links. This will be quick. Fusible links are basically wires that are designed to burn down when they get overheated. So it's similar to a fuse, but where a fuse just goes and pops quick, a fusible link takes a while for it to actually heat up and burn down and break down on you. So they are specific wires, specific gauges, and specific links. You can't go too long on a fusible link. I don't know if you can go too short. Presumably you could. But they are, generally speaking, sort of stepped down. So what I understand is that the rule of thumb is whatever gauge wire you are fusible linking to, you add 4 numbers to that, and that's the gauge you go down. So we've got a 12 gauge wire here, and we're adding a fusible link, so we're adding a 16 gauge fusible link to that. And in order to do that, you need a pretty specific connector. It's a step-down butt connector. So that's what I'm using here. I am not messing around with this butt connector. I'm not using the normal tool that I have. This thing is sort of this ratcheting crimper. I've had pretty good luck with it. I hate butt connectors. I have terrible luck with them, with things coming apart, and I've never used this particular brand or style, so I'm really kind of gun shy here. But we're giving it a shot.
Well, that thing worked incredibly tightly. So I don't know if I can get much tighter than that. I'm going to go ahead and trust that. And now we'll hope that this heat shrink can shrink enough. I don't have the perfect size here, so we're going to do what we can. Easy peasy. So that one's all set up. Just a couple more to do, and then we should be good to wrap up here. So the last wire we had to make here was for the alternator. Now, it's worth noting for you guys that if you are going with a bigger alternator in your car, which a lot of people do these days, because the original alternator in an old muscle car like this was probably only 60 amps, 30 amps. They were really small because they were really not running much. You didn't have really an electronic ignition system in them originally. You were barely running a radio. A lot of them didn't have air conditioners. There was just not a lot of electrical draw. But nowadays we're running electrical ignition systems. We're running radios that have amplifiers and have bigger draw. We're running USB ports to charge our stuff. We're running our phones when we're in them. We're running air conditioning units. There's all sorts of power being drawn, so we want bigger alternators to be able to provide more power to the car when we're riding, when we're driving. However, more power means bigger wires, and a lot of people don't do this. When you are going to upgrade that amp, there is a chart you can find very, very easily online. If I think of it when I'm doing the editing, I will add it into the description here or put a link in somewhere. That tells you what size gauge or what gauge wire you should be using on your alternator depending upon how big the amperage is on your alternator. I am planning to go to 150 amp alternator, even though it's not what I have now. So I'm running the wire suggested for that, which is 4 gauge. It's a pretty beefy wire. So I just added the ends to this. We're going to run it off the battery and then onto the alternator. So this was the last piece of the puzzle I had to make. So this isn't super easy to do. I apologize in advance. I'm trying to bring you guys in here to see what's going on as I connect the last few wires to this VHX box that connects to my Dakota Digital dash. Now I do have this camera up here that's looking at the box, but you won't really be able to see my face because there's no place where I can put this camera that's going to make that work. So sorry, you're just going to have to go with my voiceover as I work these pieces. So I'm not sure how well you can see the details here, but we're going to try. So this is the left-hand directionals. And we've got a ground and a power. At least I think that's correct. All right, so I think we've got our positive here for the left. So I guess we're going to have to group together these negatives at some point, or these grounds at some point. Don't know when. Hopefully they'll tell us that soon.
I do know that I'm going to have to make some sort of a ground cluster. I'm just unaware of exactly how much I'm going to have to cluster in it. And then we'll just have to figure out where we attach that. Okay, so I've got these orange. So we've now got everything wired up. Our alternator is now wired. We've run all of the wiring into the junction blocks, run the wire behind the radiator. Oh yeah, I put the radiator in. And we've run all of our horn wiring is set. All of this wiring was already set. All the fusible links are in place. We've removed a couple of wires from the block that we didn't need anymore now, and reset that block in place with the bolt. I've run a wire for a tack, which I did not have, so that's now in there and strung through. We haven't put the end connectors on the tack wire or the coil wire for the HEI yet. That'll be coming, but we don't need them yet because we're not ready to start this thing up. So that should be good enough for now. We have also got all of our connections done here for our VHX system. So everything is all wired in place. Now forgive the rat's nest of wires. I'm not done with that yet. Basically, I want to make sure that this whole system is going to run and everything's going to function. Once I know that I've got all my hookups right and it's working, then we'll go back in here and clean all those wires up. We're going to shorten some of those wires because that'll be necessary. And then we're just going to neatly bundle and tie them off so that it's all one consistent system. But for now, this is really just run through to make sure it's going to function for us. We've also gone ahead and mounted the dash back in place. The dash pad is not set in place there yet, but the dash is back and the steering wheel's up. So that's where we sit now. Well, we're back again. So there's a bunch more stuff that I did off camera with regards to wiring. So let me take you on a little trip of what I did there. That was kind of boring and I didn't show you. Sorry. And then we're going to take a big risk and we're going to hook up the battery and see if we burn anything down. All right, I don't think I could be a lot more excited than that. This is fantastic. Everything turned on, nothing burned down. The dash seems to be working. We've still got a ways to go. I still got to make sure that all of this stuff is working. There still could be some things that aren't working right. The headlights might not be working correctly. I might have some turn signals that are out. All that stuff is workable. We'll figure it out as we get there. The big trick is the big swaths, right? Making sure that the big things are working, and so far they are, and it hasn't shorted anything out. We haven't popped a fuse somewhere. So we are good to go. That's bringing us on to next steps. And the next steps here are going to be about fixing that power steering bracket. Once I fix that power steering bracket and get the power steering belt on, then I can go ahead and start. I'll be pretty much done up top for now. Then I can get the car up in the air, make all the connections that we need to make below, install the transmission cooler lines, install the oil filter, drop oil in this thing, do all the last systems checks that we need to do before we move on. Now I realize you guys actually can't see this. That's all right, unless you're on a giant screen, which you might be. But let's cross off some of the things that I managed to get accomplished here, and then we'll go through why we got some things in green underlining. So we got all of our wiring harness fusible links set up. Those are now done. We got our new power steering bracket is on. I'm going to cross that off, even though we got to do some clearancing on it now, just because I feel good about where it's done. We finished our dash wiring. For all intents and purposes, it's done, all except the crying now. I mean, in case there's something wrong there, and we'll figure that out. The battery is now in place. We have put the plugs in, but we haven't tightened them. We have clearanced the headers. We put the horn wires on. Heater hoses have not gone on yet, but that's okay. That's coming. That's big stuff out of the way, guys. That's a lot of huge stuff, actually. Oh, and we did the PCV and power brake hoses. We managed to pop those things on there as well. The stuff that's on here in green that still has to be done. Oh, and we're going to skip flushing the radiator because I took a look at it and it looks okay, so we're going to run with that. So the last stuff that's on here that really needs to be done, the green underlined things, those are all pretty much under the car. So I underlined them in green so I would remember that. But those are the items that we got to take care of. Once the car is jacked up and in the air, we can scoot underneath it. So I got to make sure I get all that stuff accomplished once I have it jacked up in the air. But that is hopefully coming up next. So I've already made a mark on this power steering pump bracket for the area that I need to clearance. That way it won't be a big mystery once I get this thing off of here and I have no reference point. And I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to clear this with. This is a pretty beefy piece of metal. My guess is that what I'm probably going to do is use the Dremel tool attachment for this. So I realize this looks like a little sad face, but that's unintentional. What I want to do is nibble out this space here, right in there. If I can nibble that space out of this thing, that should get me enough clearance so that this thing doesn't bump up against the stem on the power steering pump. That'll drop this lower, which will allow this arc to work. That's what I'm hoping for. All right, so we carved out our happy face there, or frowny face. Should be enough. It's not pretty, but we're going to check now to see if we got our clearance. Well, a little bit of good news, bad news on the power steering pump. The good news is my bracket clearancing worked. The bad news is we're going to need a bigger boat. Or bigger belt. So the belt that I have now is a little too short, won't work on there. So we're gonna have to go for something with probably like an inch, maybe 2 inches more in length. So that'll be a fun battle to go and get, because I'm sure I'm gonna have to go to the auto parts store and tell the guys that I need a belt that's a little bit bigger than this, and his first question is gonna be, what car is it for? And I'm gonna tell him to shut up and just let me behind the counter and let me look at the pulleys and the belts. But, you know, that'll be fun. Anyway, so that's a strikeout there, but that doesn't mean that we're done for the day, because now we can move on to the stuff that is on the underside of the car. Hey gang, well here's our little update for where this fiasco is at now. We are again in another week where I should be posting a video right now, but I'm holding off. And that's because I really desperately want to be able to post a video that ends with this thing running. But running into some issues. So I came out here and had to get a couple things done. Managed to get the transcooler lines hooked up. That was a big to-do list item that I got checked off. No problem, mission accomplished. Then I moved on to the drive shaft to get that connected, which I thought would also be no problem. Nothing changed in the dimensions after all. But when I got under there, the drive shaft just would not go into the transmission, which I couldn't figure out. But on further inspection, it looks like the tail shaft housing is damaged. So the point of it, the area where the seal is flattened. It looks like somewhere along the way,
it took a shot. I mean, clearly while we had the thing out of the car. And it is now flat enough so that it damaged the seal, crunched it in, did some damage. So what that means is that I'm going to need a new tail shaft. Now, I did heat it up, managed to bend it out a little bit, but it's not great. So I'm going to need a new tail shaft. That's going to happen for sure. But in the meantime, I'm now going to look around and see if I can find that seal at the parts store real quick. If I can, then what I'm going to do is just jam that seal in there. Maybe just silicone that sucker in there too, just to ensure that it's going to stay. And then we'll jam it in there for now as a short-term fix, and then I'll get the tail shaft ordered. The good news is it's actually pretty easy to take in and out of the car when you just got it lifted up. It's 4 bolts. It comes out pretty simple. So it's not a nightmare to change. It's just, you know, another pain in the neck. So now I'm just going on to do the last few things that need to be done here to make sure that this puppy runs, like putting in oil. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the hoses connected for coolant, replace these old clamps, put the linkage on the carburetor, because the linkage bracket's on there right now, but the actual linkage is not connected up. We're going to get as many of these things buttoned up and crossed off as we possibly can, and get ourselves as close as humanly possible to being able to turn the key and get this thing fired up. Alright guys, here I am, Saturday morning. Should have had this video out yesterday. Oh well, but we wanted to get this thing running. Mystery Mike has joined me over here in the corner. You can tell it's getting to be springtime because the hood is down, so you might actually catch a glimpse of his head. He's here to help me button these things up. Plus, I think secretly he felt enough ownership in this that he really wanted to hear it fire up for the first time. So yep. He's here this morning for it. So we got a couple last things to do. Let me show you what I screwed up yesterday. Last night, when I went to go throw the drive shaft into the car, I found that the tail shaft on the transmission wasn't accepting the drive shaft. And it's because somewhere along the way, when we don't know when it was us taking the engine and trans out of the car, or when it was putting it back in, or one of the many moves that we made in the middle of that process, the transmission must have taken a big bump, and it flattened out in the bottom of the tail shaft here, this lip. And it flattened out enough that it actually squeezed the seal and tightened up the opening. It didn't damage the internal part with the bushing rides for the drive shaft. It didn't mess up that part of it, but it did mess up this outer lip. So I need a new tail shaft. So that is going to get ordered. We're going to replace this tail shaft because this one's now beaten up enough that I don't want to use it long term. But short term, to get this thing running and going, we're going to patch this up. So ran out last night and got a new seal, which came with a new bushing. As you can see on the inside there, it's all shiny and coppery. Managed to heat up and sort of bend this back in place. This lip did get a couple of sort of superficial cracks in it, which I just JB welded up. Nothing that I'm worried about from a structural standpoint. And truthfully, not much that I'm worried about from a leaking standpoint, because nothing is cracked through on the inside. There's no internal cracks that go all the way through. But I'm going to throw this back in the car now, and then hopefully slide that drive shaft back in. And that's the last thing I got to do underneath the car, and then I'll go through the checklist with you. All right, guys. Final pass through the checklist. The car is now down on its own shoes. So we're going to go through the final things that I did. We did attach the trans cooler lines. Those are all set. I didn't even bother adding in the extra piece of the fact that we had to go through all that issue with the tail shaft, but we know about that. We didn't flush the fuel tank, but we did add octane additive. So I had a little bottle of that. We added that in. We've also got another 5 gallons of 93 octane fuel that we're going to pour into it as well, to make sure that we're dealing with the proper octane, because this engine does require 91 octane because of the high compression. We connected our collectors. We connected the speedo cable a couple of times since we had to take that tail shaft out. Drive shaft is in. We installed the radiator and hoses. We installed the connector
linkage. We put the fans and pulley belts in. Engine is grounded. Heater hoses are on. Oh, sorry, heater hoses are not on, but we're going to skip that for now. So now we put the oil filter on. Oil is in. One thing I'm realizing, Mike, that we didn't do, we're going to do right now, is my feet, transmission fluid. So we'll put the transmission fluid in, and then it's time for us to turn the key and get the pump primed on this one. As long as the pump priming works, then we'll throw the cap and rotor on. Oh, sorry, just the cap and wires on, and then we'll start this thing up. We are almost ready to go. So we've got everything ready. We've got the timing light on the ready. We are all connected. We have given this a couple of boots without everything connected, without the plugs in it, just run the starter dry, just to get oil pressure. And we did see that we had oil pressure. So we're good there. We've got the oil circulating through the motor. We are full on the trans fluid, at least at cold. We know as soon as we start it up, it's going to start sucking that down, and we're going to need to add more. Power steering fluids in. We think we're ready to go. So now it's the time for the moment of truth. And I'm going to double check to make sure all my cameras are running, and hopefully we can capture all this live, guys.
Fuel's in the carb. We already know that.
We got fuel in the carb, yes.
Yeah, we're there.
Verified that through the bowls. We got fuel in the carb.
Don't do anything, whatever you do.
Make sure you get that in the right direction.
No.
You don't have it in the right direction. See the arrow?
Oh, yeah, that would help. And I need
didn't
a
even see the
ground.
Indians. Oh, no, you don't need that. That's for dwell.
Oh, well, okay. You know what I'm doing for? We'll know we have spark if this flashes.
True.
Timing's irrelevant, as
True.
long as it's flashing.
All right. Let's see.
That's just if it doesn't start.
I didn't put a return spring on this either.
Nope. It's got a decent...
We definitely got gas in there.
Yep. Hold on. Yep.
You ready?
Yep.
Moment of truth, guys.
Fuel. Transmission, I just want... Cam's got a little chop to it.
Oh yeah. I gotta listen to it.
Go listen. Get. It's running on 8, obviously.
Yeah. Sounds mean.
Shut it off, take a poke around, because I want to look at those trans lines underneath. The dog.
There it is, guys. It sounds fantastic. This thing is mean. It's got a nice chop to it. It just, I'm thrilled. I'm over the moon. This thing sounds awesome. No leaks, right? That we
Nope.
can find yet?
Only thing we have to check is the transmission cooler lines into the transmission.
Yep.
Everything else is perfect.
And we'll check the trans fluid. I'm sure we're going to have to add more of that. We're going to still actually have to burp the power steering fluid, and we'll have to do the same with the radiator too, because that's just been filled. But a bunch of minor stuff for us to do, as well as getting this thing sort of dialed in. That started off with a real high idle, so we got to get this thing warmed up and get that that idle tuned down. So all that stuff is more for me to do on this beautiful weekend, but hopefully I'm going to get to drive this sucker around this weekend because it's running. And now I can show you guys too. So thanks for sticking around for the ride, guys. I am thrilled, but I'm going to shut the camera off and I'm just going to get giddy with my car and my new motor. And big thanks to Mike for all the help that he's provided in this on this whole way. Even though he won't talk to you guys, but
Hi.
but thanks for sticking around and watching, and hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you like this. Your likes mean that more people actually see this video, and that means better things for us. So please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Throwing Wrenches.